guys, welcome back to series, what is it? We're on number 5. I've just started these off again. We had quite a delay in them. And I've got a great guest today, somebody who done some training with about, I guess it was about 18 months ago, he might correct me. And been inspired by his journey since. So today we've got Ryan Abbott. I'm not going to steal his thunder. Ryan, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, that's a difficult one, that, Stephen. Where do I start? I suppose I'll bat that one back to you and ask you, what do you want to know? I think what I'd say is I'm greater than the sum of my parts. I'm from a small mining town of Wigan in the northwest of England. Yeah. What do you want to know?
Start us off with your journey, because you didn't sort of come through the training the conventional way. Is that the right word?
It sounds about right to me.
You came in through a recommendation, didn't you? And just shot yourself in the deep end. Straight into elite, no messing about. Hadn't done a 1 day, didn't do any sort of advanced training, just went bang, straight into elite level. And I think that takes a certain type of person within itself. So what was the reasoning for doing that? I guess you were looking for something at the time, or maybe it was looking to escape from something. But I don't want to take that away from you. So tell us, what was it that made you do that?
I was just primed, I think, at that point. I'd worked offshore for a few years. I've had many different careers, and I'd decided to go and work offshore for a few years to build up a pot of cash, which would allow me to start my own property portfolio, and also I was also inspired to start my own business as well. So I remember sitting in a van up a mountain in Scotland talking to a colleague of mine about yourself and the course that he was about to go on, and it just seemed like a lot of synchronicity. It just sounded like that's exactly what I needed at that time. I was sick of working away from home at that point. I had a little boy, small family. I think my son was probably 2 at that time. I felt like I was missing out on being a dad, and so yeah, I spoke to yourself, and I think it took me less than 24 hours to commit, and yeah, here we are today.
And this is what I love about this story as well, is because you had a good job, didn't you? You had a high-paid, what would be deemed as a well-paid job, didn't you, offshore?
I did, yeah. So, I stepped into the offshore work from a good job as a PAYE job as a civil engineer. I was a member of the Institute of Civil Engineers for about 10 years. I worked as a specialist pilot engineer, and again, I just didn't feel like I was fulfilling my potential. So I decided that there was an opportunity there for me to work offshore and earn some good money and give me a bit of space to decide what I then might really want to do. So yeah, I was working offshore, earning really good money when I heard about the course that you do, and since doing your course, I came back to working in a PAYE job to be closer to my family, and within a year of starting that job, and within a year of, well, less than a year, I think it was, of doing your course, I gave that job up, and just as Tony Robbins says, I burnt all the boats. There was no going back, and I made it so that I put myself in a position where there was only one way forward, and that was to succeed in the different business ventures that I've embarked upon since then.
Tell me, how did that feel doing that? Because one of my old mentors, he'd come out of a situation where he was massively overweight. He'd just come out of a failed marriage. His business had just failed. Like literally everything around him, he was at a really low point. And he just thought, if I'm going to change my life, I need to make a real commitment. And his story is exactly the same of burning them boats. He literally burned all of his clothes. He was, I believe, an XXL, and he burned all his clothes, kept one suit, bought an XL, a large, and a whole wardrobe worth of medium clothes, and had to wear them one set of clothes until he basically got down. His money out of his house that he got from his divorce, he put the whole lot into personal development and just really went for it. He didn't have any other option but to succeed. What's your advice on someone doing that? If somebody's listening to this now and they maybe want to jump from their job, or they're in a situation where they've got to take that leap, what would you advise someone like that? How did you transition? I know you've told us you burnt your boats, but what advice would you give to someone who's doing that, who's sat on that fence and looking to make that difficult decision?
Well, it can sound cliche, but to educate yourself in what you're doing. So get to know what you're doing, get to understand what your vision is, and get a mentor. Get as many mentors as you can get your hands on. So, and you know that's what helped me to make the big steps that I've made. But also, it's helped me to maintain my mental health. And to avoid a lot of mistakes that I made. Well, not all the mistakes. You don't avoid all the mistakes, but certainly avoid more of the mistakes that you can make. And if you're feeling comfortable, you're probably not. You're not pushing yourself. So it's about leaning into that discomfort. And I mean, at times I've been thinking, what the hell have I done? What the hell am I doing? I haven't got a clue. But you know, the fact that there was no going back has made me work out what I'm doing and be, you know, push towards being the best at what we do. And you know, there's no sitting down and thinking, well, you know, there's no backup plan basically. So there's no backup plan. So there's no bigger inspiration than a fire under your pants, I suppose. Yeah.
I love that. So would you recommend then, if somebody is sat on that fence, it literally is just pull the trigger and just, or would you advise that if they can transition in some sort of way? Because for me, when I made the leap from the army, obviously a secure job, had that regular income coming in, I kind of transitioned a little bit. So I started to build up my property a bit while I had income coming in. And I built up that for sort of a few years, doing a couple of flips while I was in the army. It was difficult to do that because the polarity, then you're trying to manage two sort of jobs, and that brings with it its own challenges. But I guess I had a little bit of transitioning. What I did have, I still had that. The day when I came out of the army, income was completely cut. So I guess you are sort of, right, it's now time to swim or sink. But I did have a bit of time to transition. What's your sort of take on that? I guess you, did you have the opportunity to transition, or did you just not make that an option?
Well, for me, it probably was an option. Yeah, I could have carried on working in my engineering job, taking a wage, but I felt I was doing them and myself a disservice by having one leg in and one leg out. So for me, it was shit or bust. It was like I've for a long time I've sort of, I suppose it depends on your constitution and it depends on who you are as a person. And I knew that I needed to be focused on one thing. As it turns out, I'm focused on more than one thing in terms of my own businesses, but it's about managing myself and my own time and not feeling accountable to another person's business who's paying me. For me, that's what I needed to do. I knew that's what I needed to do, and I don't regret doing that at all. But I think if you can get a more comfortable transition, then definitely it's something to consider, because doing what I've done, it can set a strain on you financially and mentally, which for me has been a benefit, because the more you push yourself in that regard, the more growth that you can achieve, you know, for when times do get tough and times do get lean. You know, you've already got that experience behind you. But I probably wouldn't advise. So I wouldn't say to somebody, do what I've done, because they're not me. You know what I mean? I would only take that risk myself. I wouldn't in any way expect or advise somebody else to do the same thing as what I've done. But I think it's in everybody to do it. It's in everybody to do it. It's just a matter of making those calculated, taking those calculated risks. And the biggest thing for me is trusting your own instinct and trusting yourself. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've got from you is being able to trust myself and my own choices and my decisions, you know, and not beating myself up when I get it wrong, basically, because, you know, we're not always going to get it right, and who knows what's right and wrong half the time anyway. So, yeah.
Well, I did share that with you we were having a private chat work with you the day, and I don't know did you watch my live where I said I made sort of came off track myself a little bit. Did you watch the live that I've done?
I haven't seen the live. No. But you did say what had happened briefly, but I'd like to see that, actually. I don't know the full story yet.
Yeah, well, basically, and do you know what? This is crazy, right? That live that I did last Saturday, obviously it'll be the third one this Saturday coming up. That confession that I made, I've had more messages off the back of that confession than I think any other live that I've ever had. And it was more people surprised with me actually talking into that of because, and you're very aware of some of the challenges I've faced with the current development that I'm doing, that how relaxed I am when all of these things appear to be crumbling around you. And that's some of what people have always picked up, that ability to just not flap. And I even remember, like, this isn't just since I've left the army or started in property. I've got an old report off an old commanding officer saying Corporal Green is unflappable. So I guess it's just something that I just manage well. But as I said to you in the messages, I had a bit of a drop-off because that ultra calm self that I normally am, a week ago, I grabbed my phone and I launched it at a wall. And that was just out of just instant anger that came through. And I know what it is, like, on reflection, it's because I expect a high standard of myself, that discipline. That is the third of my top 5 values. And I just know I'm capable of a better result than that. And normally I don't beat myself up, but I think it was that frustration because I'm so passionate about getting my message across to people. There's 150 people on the live and my fucking phone's upside down. I'm basically doing a headstand. And yeah, I guess we're all fucking human, mate. But literally in that heat of the moment, that phone went. But the amount of messages I've had of people saying that they were surprised to hear me say that, because how can I be dealing with a multi-million-pound project and be so relaxed in that, yet lost my shit in that moment? I don't know is the answer on reflection. Like I say, there's a bit of expecting more from myself, the passion of delivery. But I guess we're just human. I guess every now and then you're going to have those, that little wobble, although it lasted literally 20 minutes. And on reflection, I knew I'd been a dick, and it certainly didn't serve me, that behaviour. But I think part of it, and this is not me making an excuse because I don't agree with what I did, I think part of it is the fact I've set myself this challenge of the double Ironman. And there's what I've noticed in my training is there's a little bit more aggression that I haven't needed to train that way for quite a while. And what I found is the last couple of weeks, because I've obviously set myself this challenge, I've just noticed a difference in my behaviour a little bit when I'm out running, when I'm out on the bike. And I guess that has just sort of been sat in the background a little bit, and that's what I'm putting it down to. Although I'm certainly not having it as any sort of excuse, because it's not. But yeah, I guess like that, what you're saying, you are going to have them wobbles. What I'd like to know, we're going to reverse back a little bit now. Tell me about life for Ryan growing up.
Growing up, well, like I said, I was brought up in Wigan. My dad was a scaffolder. He was actually blacklisted from the building industry, so he didn't work for a number of years. But fortunately, by the time I was born, he had his own business, a kitchen company. So yeah, life was pretty standard. Probably not the happiest childhood as a kid. Being a teenager and growing up and stuff like that, sort of graduated from college, went to university, dropped out of university after a couple of years of pissing most of it up the wall and chasing girls, and yeah, then just worked for the family business for a few years while I saved up to go traveling and try and find myself and understand what what is it all about, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that's about it, really. Just a standard life. I don't know really how to talk into that, to be honest with you, Steve.
Why did you drop out of uni? Because do you know what, right? It's weird you say this. The amount of people that I speak to that make good entrepreneurs didn't actually do too well at school, or they had this tendency to be a bit destructive and not sort of follow the norm, should we say. So did you do well at school? Was that something that, because you do come across as a very intelligent person, that comes quite natural to you?
I underachieved. So at high school, I underachieved. I found it all a bit too easy and a bit of a distraction, and I wasn't very present, and I did okay at school, but I just did okay just by turning up, to be honest with you. I totally cocked my A levels up. I didn't do great at my A levels, but I always had a passion for being an entrepreneur, making money. I always had money from when I was like 11 years old. I made my own money. I used to sell computer discs. I used to charge other kids at school for going to the shop for them on my break times. So I always had money in my pocket, and that came from my dad, because he was a grafter. You could drop him in the desert with a pair of swimming trunks on, and he'd turn up, driving a second-hand Ford Granada or something like that. So, he knew how to get money in his pocket through connecting with people, really, just being a people person and understanding how supply and demand works. So went to university, again, still didn't have my head in it, didn't really know what I was doing and why I was doing it. I studied product design and digital realization, and I just didn't apply myself to that at all. Just I suppose like an aimless time in my life. I was having a really good time, don't get me wrong, it was the best time in my life, but didn't have any direction at all at that point. But all I ever did know was that I wanted my own business. I wanted to be a business owner, and I wanted to be able to manage my own destiny. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. So I had, when I came back from traveling, I studied part-time, did an HNC in civil engineering, and then embarked on quite a successful career as a civil engineer, but never really enjoyed it. It was always about hammering a square peg into a round hole, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was just a job. It was just a job. And eventually, I lost my dad. We lost my dad about 6 years ago. And that probably for me, as well as becoming a dad, was the biggest catalyst for change. It was like, you just get one chance at this life. And I'm not happy in my job that I'm doing. my personal life is quite sad and a struggle. After losing my dad, and I just decided that I needed to make a change, and that was when I started to work offshore. When I worked offshore, I loved it, I enjoyed it, and it's a lot of money. It was a great job, working out in the outdoors, hanging off a rope and fixing turbine blades in countries all over the world. But then having that realization that I'm a father, and there's a compromise, and it's not a compromise that I want to make. I want to prioritize being a dad. My little boy was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when he was 5 weeks old, which made it even more important for me to be at home to support my family. And since him being born, that has probably been my biggest driver to succeed, and to look within, really. That's why I find that question, who are you? It's the $1 million question, isn't it? Who am I? My name's Ryan Abbott, but really, who am I? And I'm still right in the middle of that journey, really, of self-reflection.
No, I love that, and I think that's one of the reasons why you connected so well, was the fact that you are on that spiritual journey as well. You very much, that's an important part of your life, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about that, because that's something what I think is special about you.
So self-development for me is a massive category, and I sort of see myself bridging between different perspectives on self-development, like mindfulness, the law of attraction. I've done a lot of work in psychotherapy. I've trained for a couple of years as a psychotherapist, and at the moment my big passion is breath work. So I'm trained to be a breathwork facilitator, and just realizing the power that we've got within ourselves to sort of to connect and be present. And ultimately, for me, that's what the goal is. It's presence. It's if you want to achieve, if you want to be happy, if you want to have a good relationship, whatever it is that you want to excel at, it's all about being present ultimately. And there's many avenues to find presence, but I think that the personal journey of healing and finding that presence is very, very individual. So there's no fits all plan. Basically, it's down to you and what works best for you, and only you know that, and only you can find that out, basically, if you're looking, and not everybody is, and that's okay as well. Yeah.
What do you think is the secret of that, of development, in becoming a better version of yourself and improving? Is what do you put that down to? What's the secret to it?
Ask me that again.
So what's the secret to improving yourself, of becoming a better version of yourself? If somebody sat there now and maybe they don't do personal growth, and we can all improve our results, we can all be a better person in all areas of financial, better partners, better parents, better children, just in a better state of mind. What's the secret to that? What would you put it down to?
I think to start off with is by forgiving yourself and accepting yourself for who you are and where you are, and that you are ultimately the best version of you that you could be right now, given what you've experienced in your life up to now. And until you really accept yourself for who you are in this moment, you're going to struggle to move on and to grow and to become this better person, because striving to be a better person, to make yourself sort of feel better, or it doesn't, for me, it doesn't really work in that cycle. It's sort of about accepting yourself first before you can really experience that feeling of joy and connection, and and for me, a big part of that journey has been understanding the effects of trauma, and how we release old traumas from our system. And it's we've all experienced trauma in our lives, whether it be extreme abuse, or it can be just as simple as something as being terrified as a baby because your mum's left you in the room while she answers the door, or something like that. It's not about the actual event, it's about the effect that it has on you as a person, and we're all affected differently by trauma. I mean, a lot of soldiers go to war, they come back and they see the same things as what the colleagues see, but they're affected very, very differently, and that's on an extreme level. But in everyday life, I think it's exactly the same. Some everyday occurrences don't have an effect on some people, and they do have a significant effect on others. And we all turn to different means and different methods to deal with the effects of trauma. Everything from addiction, alcohol, sex, working, eating. There's an infinite different ways of suppressing how we feel, and I'm of the belief that the only way to heal is by actually allowing yourself to feel. And as we know, some of those feelings are not always particularly comfortable, but you can't cancel out the shitty ones without cancelling out all the good ones as well. So it's just about letting it all in, I suppose, and accepting who you are.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you said about that forgiveness of yourself before you can move forward. What would you say to somebody, though, if they're listening to this and they maybe feel really bad about something that they've done? How does somebody forgive themselves of something that they maybe's ashamed of, or maybe's that they know it's a behaviour that they're not proud of, for example, that something that they've done? How does somebody let go of that?
I would say to get some support, to speak to somebody that you trust, speak to either a professional or a friend, or somebody that you can maybe share what's going on for you with, and it's not necessarily something that just happens. I'm not saying just forgive yourself and move on with it. It's not as simple as that for most people, but just try not to be so hard on yourself. We've all made mistakes in life, and we all make decisions that are based upon what we've learned up to that point in our lives. And if you're reflecting on something that that you regret or that you feel shame for, then there's a recognition there that you don't want to do that again. You don't want to go back into that cycle again. And the only way to really do that is through forgiveness for yourself. And ask yourself the question, if somebody else that you loved was feeling the way that you were, and had done similar things to what you've done in similar circumstances, would you extend forgiveness to them? And if so, can you extend that same forgiveness to yourself, I suppose? Yeah,
I love that, mate. And I personally do think with this that, like you said, it might not be easy to do, but I do think it comes down to a decision. It really is that decision of, today's the day I'll let the past go, and my past was my past, and I am now going to move forward, because I do truly believe at any moment at all, we can take a completely different path in life. And it really does come down to, yes, it might be a build-up of a year or 2 years of feeling that pain, but when you eventually move forward, it literally comes down to a 1 second decision of enough's enough, and I'm now moving forward. Right, I'm going to. We went quite deep there. I expected that to happen with yourself, Ryan. So we're going to bring it back to property. Tell me about what you're doing right now in property. So where are you now? What have you done since you've made them decisions?
So building a portfolio with, as part of a joint venture at the moment with Rebecca McNicholas, who's also part of the PIA. Also collaborating with Rebecca on a deal sourcing business called I Am Homes, where we source properties for investors. So that could be anything from somebody who's new to investing, and wants a little bit of hand holding while they make the first step into buying the first property, or it could be, we're working with an investor at the moment, an overseas investor. He's an experienced investor, but he just wants a completely hands-off approach. So we offer a full spectrum of services, right from sort of holding someone's hand, talking them through the process so that they get a bit of an understanding and guidance about how we strategize sourcing a deal and taking it right through to letting that property. And also, like I say, a completely hands-off approach. This particular investor that we're working with at the moment, he's based in Hong Kong, and you'll probably never see most of these properties, but he will obviously receive the yield from them, and we work really closely with him. He expects a lot of detail on each property that we present to him. We've just completed on a property with this particular investor. It's a property in Middlesbrough, and yeah, he's basically got a full review of the local area, the kind of tenants that he's likely to receive, you name it, every single aspect of that he needs to know about that property. He's received full details from ourselves. We've also provided him with a local solicitor, shared our broker with him, and we'll be managing the refurb of that property starting from next week, and then also helping him to manage the tenancy of it as well.
Great. So it's a complete hands-off approach, full package for your clients.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you're fully compliant as well, aren't you? It's you've set everything up very professional, haven't you? I know the way you organise yourself, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's where my engineering brain comes in, actually, my analytical brain. So, which I'm often at odds with because I've got this quite creative side to me as well. But yeah, the engineering brain comes in really useful with the compliance side of things. So we're fully compliant. We use a number of different systems to help us to maintain our compliance. We use a system called Etsos, which does all of our AML checks for us for the property and for the investor. We use an encrypted database for storing our investors' information and our clients' information. So we work really closely with a lady who's helped us to create all the documents for maintaining our compliance, and also attended one of your own courses on sourcing as well. So we've done a lot of work and a lot of research into how to actually maintain a sustainable and compliant sourcing model, property sourcing model, and it's working really, really well for us.
No, that's great. Love that. What's the vision? Where are you going? What are you doing?
The vision, it's a big one for me, and it's that question in itself is, as you well know, for me to get that vision down and narrow that vision down, it's because I have so many different ideas and passions. So I'll try and keep it as simple as possible. So in the short term, it would be to grow the deal sourcing business to within the next 12 months, so that we're sourcing a minimum of 4 deals a month for our investors. The property portfolio within the next 2 years, we plan to have enough property income to cover all of our bills and basic costs. More holidays with the family, definitely. I've worked like a dog for the last 12 months. I've, there is no off switch, which again is another struggle for me. I love what I'm doing at the moment, and I love running these different businesses that I'm involved in. But it's important to find that balance, and the more you find that balance, the more successful you find. I find myself in these various different businesses as well. So yeah, more time for me, more time for my family, and I'm really passionate about helping other people. So within the next 5 years, I aim to be sat on a panel of angel investors who help entrepreneurs who can make a social impact to grow their business and make those businesses more commercially viable. I'm also really passionate about food. So within the next 10 years, I aim to have fed more than 50,000 people with healthy, nutritious meals. So
love that, mate. Absolutely love it. Ryan, I've loved this conversation with you. I could literally talk to you all day. If people are listening now, where can they find you? Because I know that you do work with investors. You do have this obviously full professional service for your clients. Where can people find you if this is the first time that they've come across you?
You can go to my personal Facebook page. From there, you'll be able to find I Am Homes. You'll be able to get access to our website, which is www.iamhomes.com. We've also got a Facebook page, and yeah, drop me a personal message on Messenger, or you can also contact us through the website as well.
Brilliant. Ladies and gents, that was Ryan Abbott. I'm sure you enjoyed that as much as I did. Do check him out. He's a great person. He offers a great professional service. We will see you back on the next episode, which will be number 6. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, mate.